Or if my wife goes to work, who's going to wash my clothes? Who's going to cook my food? Well, you go to the bachelor menu. You know the bachelor menu, right? Do you deliver? But nobody, so, you know, and let's say in the 1940s, 1840s, women's lived, say, well, no, you see, it takes so much energy to run a house. You've got to be washing the clothes, you've got to be getting the food, you've got to be, you know, storing the food and all this and that. And you say, no, don't worry, you can let the women go to work, they can get out of the house because we're going to have giant rotating machines that, you know, eat dirty clothes and spit out clean clothes. Don't worry, it's magic. There's going to be dinosaur juice in there too. They use that for everything in the future. Or you're going to have magic frozen boxes that keep your food fresh for infinity. A little bit like medieval Iceland would. And people would say, but that's not an answer, you're just making stuff up. But that's what the future is. It's incomprehensible solutions that sound completely ridiculous in the present, but work in ways that are staggering. I mean, just go back, I mean, I'm in the computer industry forever, I mean, just go back 20 years, that you will get free video conferencing around the world, handheld, almost anywhere you are, with live translation for typed messages that's free. And people, you couldn't comprehend that. And try to explain that to somebody in 1850 or even 1950 or even 1970, people wouldn't understand it. What do you mean free? How could it be free? Who's paying? Like, people can't understand. And that's what I mean when I say the future is going to be nothing like the past. And the more we try and hook into making the future look like the past, the more we diminish the power and potential and possibility of the future. So, I'll give you another example. There may be some people here who are older who remember how scary polio was, right? I mean, polio was, I mean, a terrifying disease. I mean, it could put you in an iron lung for life or paralyze you as it did FDR. And moms would keep their kids away from public pools because that's where it was transmitted. And it was just a disastrous and terrifying illness. So let's say, you know, this, I think it was it the 1940s they came up with the vaccine? I think it was something like that. I think it was earlier than the 50s. But if we were designing some futuristic healthcare system in the 1920s, and we'd say, well, how are we going to deal with polio? Polio, so it's about tuberculosis, polio, all of the things which you don't really have to worry about anymore. And if we were to say, no, there'll be this little magic fluid, you know, people will just get it, sniff it, inject it or whatever, and it will make them immune from these illnesses forever. What about smallpox? No, that's gone too. Malaria, forget about it. I'm going to wave my magic wand, we won't have to worry about it. People would say, that's cheating. I mean, you're just waving away problems rather than coming up with real solutions. But that's what the future does. It chews up problems for breakfast. And they vanish from society. And the more you try and hook the future into the past, the more you deny that very real reality. I try to be as redundant as possible. But that genuinely real, authentic, true reality. The more you try and hook that wagon to the past, the more you deny its momentum in the future, and the more you're trying to solve the problems of the future, which we can't do because that's a collective endeavor run by the free market. But it's like trying to drive really fast, only looking in the rearview mirror. I mean, you don't even see what you're going to hit. And so my concern is that we focus a lot on things will be solved like they were in the past. We'll get back to the small constitution. We'll get back to 1776. We'll go back to Iceland. We'll improve Somalia. We'll go better than medieval Ireland. And I think that's not the way to win hearts and minds. I think that was a more valid way. I mean, my master's is in history, and when I was going through my history graduate program, the amount of I guess what's called revisionist history at the time. It's probably more conservative history now. But the amount of revisionist history was astonishing in that the myth of the virtuous revolution that led to freedom for all Americans, well, it was taking a lot of blows. I mean, the Republic was kind of built on a lot of dead natives, right? I mean, that wasn't good. That really wasn't very good. And, I mean, there's still some debate about whether it was bio-warfare to give the smallpox blankets or whether it was a genocide or not. But still, I mean, the population declined by millions of people who were not initially hostile to the white man until the boomstick came out. And the virtue of the Founding Fathers has been called into question with some historical evidence. I don't mean the virtue like they weren't good guys and good thinkers and all that, but some of the stuff they did wasn't, you know, particularly great with their slaves. And so when you bring the past in, you also bring all the mess and sordidness and seediness and primitiveness of the past in. And I don't think that's how you get to the future in a way that is really powerful and convincing to people. I also don't believe that people who say, how is this problem going to be solved in the future, are interested in the answer. Have you ever experienced that? Well, how are the roads going to be dealt with? Well, who says we even need the roads? The roads are a bunch of statist conventions that have made us a car-dependent society involved in the foreign wars in the Middle East, so who cares if we even need them? Once the government goes away, maybe we'll get jetpacks. Well, how are the jetpacks going to solve the pollution of the jetpacks? Well, we'll have nets there, and penguins will follow after you and eat them all that. How are you going to feed the penguins? And it makes you lose the will to live after a while, right? You just can't take another breath. I can't come up with another solution that you're going to shoot down with another imaginary arrow. I mean, it's exhausting. And so, my suggestion, and I throw this out with all the cautions of one of the most volatile things that you can do. And my suggestion has been from the beginning, drop the solutions. Drop the historical comparisons. Drop the it's like this. Drop the analogies. I'd say drop the metaphors, but then my speech would be like 4 minutes. See, metaphors are so much easier than evidence. So much easier than reason. Hey, I read the Bible. I know what works with people. Give me a good story, and I'm yours. Which is, I don't believe that the state is guns pointing downwards. I don't believe that. And I haven't believed that for very many years. I believe that the state is the slaves attacking each other. They just profit from the infighting, right? So if you've ever seen the movie The Life of Brian, Monty Python? Yes, great film, great film. You know, there's that scene where the revolutionaries come in to free Brian, and they start arguing about the best way to do it, and then they draw swords, and they're just hacking at each other, and they're hacking each other down, and the legionnaires are just like, we'll just wait till they're all done and bury them. I think that's a lot of what goes on. I think that the state is a fantasy that is kept aloft by the aggressive delusions of the slaves. And to cut down the state is not really, to me, at all about addressing the state. It's just about cutting off the delusions, cutting down the delusions, and the way that you do that is you expose them for delusions. That the state is nothing about virtue, the state is nothing about goodness, the state is nothing about helping the poor. The state is about violence, the state is about guns. And when you expose that with people and you peel back those layers, and that is not an argument about history, it's not an argument about statistics, it's not an argument about evidence, it's not an argument about analogies, it is a simple repetitive identification. Taxation is force. The law is an opinion with a gun. And when you expose the state for what it is, you know, like those movies where there's some invisible guy, and then someone's got to find him, and they got this talcum powder. You know, they just, I can see him. But that's what it is. They've got this talcum powder of like philosophy that exposes that there's a guy with a gun in the room called the state.